Welcome to another edition of Pet Matters. My name is Dorothy Claeys, and I'm the Executive Director at Francisville Home for Smaller Animals right here in Radnor, Pennsylvania. Francisville is one of the oldest continuously run nonprofit animal shelters, no-kill animal shelters, I should say, in the United States, having been started in 1909. Our mission is to provide loving care to abused, unwanted, and surrendered animals, mainly cats and dogs here, while helping them find their forever homes. So today we welcome back Dr. Carlo Siracusta, a renowned animal behaviorist, professor, and the director of the Animal Behavior Service at the School of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome, Dr. Siracusta, and thank you so much for joining us again on another edition of Pet Matters.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be back.
So to stay relevant in the times here, well, we know this year has been one like no other. And due to the pandemic, adoptions and fosters of shelter animals has just reached an all-time high. Many people also like to adopt over the holidays while they're home. So first, I thought today we might pick your brain and discuss some of the most common behavioral issues that arise when transitioning either a shelter or another animal where, maybe you from a breeder or whatever, cat or dog into the home. And then secondly, we can talk a little bit about the fact that people are spending so much time with their new furry friends that what can they prepare for when they decide that they want to leave the house and go back to work for more hours than they've been spending at home. So let's begin with what are some of the most common issues that arise in transitioning a new animal, cat or dog. Let's try to stay on those two, into a new home.
Yes, sure. As you say correctly, this has been quite a different year. And I think many people had the chance to probably do what they have dreamed or thought for a long time, which was to get a pet, a cat or a dog. And they did. And we are actually seeing it. Also, as veterinarians, we see a huge influx of new patients. So what people should expect when they get a new dog or a new cat in their home? Well, first of all, I would say that this year specifically, not only people were getting a new pet in their household, but also they were getting a pet at a time in which their schedule was different than usual. So this is a little bit different than normally, because normally you would get a pet, then the pet gets acclimated to your new household, and that is it. But this year is not going to be this way, because hopefully at some point we'll go back to a normal life. So there is going to be a second change for the pet. So this has to be kept in mind, that there are two important transitions for the pet. Once from the shelter to the new home, and then from the new home with the pandemic routine to the new home with the non-pandemic routine. At the beginning of the pandemic, we have seen a lot of problems, not only with animals that were newly adopted, but also with animals that were in the house. Because as I was saying before, the routine changed. And so people found themselves always at home, and pets found that the owner was always around, which for some pets is good, for some animals is good. I don't know if you remember, there was this fake like a journal article, like a piece written by a cat and one written by a dog, and the cat was saying, I think you should go back to work. while, while the dog was saying like, oh, this is great, don't never go back to work again. So this was a big change, and I think more than depending on the species, it depends a lot on the individual. There are individual animals that really um, enjoyed their time off when they had time just for them to just relax and sleep and rest. And then they had the time with the owners, which was a moment of activity and things to do. And also, it's a matter of distribution of spaces, right? There were spaces that during a certain number of hours they were only for your pets. That now they finally they suddenly they had to share with people, and this was quite an adjustment. And actually, we had a lot of calls, a lot of appointments about this. But now, I would say that most pets by now, it's been several months, unfortunately, that we are in this situation. Now, most pets they have adjusted, and what I was recommended to people was to give. To their dog or cat time and space, because they were used to have time and space. It was some time for them. So this hopefully is under control. For people that got new pets during this period, well, first of all, it also depends where they got their pets. So animals that come from a shelter situation, we have to keep two things in mind. One, that is, first of all, there is a reason why they've been surrendered, right? And if you
Right.
look at the reasons, top reasons for surrendering animal to shelters are behavior problems. So there might be a pre-existing behavior problems, and not everything. As working together, we learned very well, Dorothy. Not everything is visible at the shelter. Because it's just not a home environment. So, for example, if it's a problem of separation anxiety, it might not become manifested until the pet actually find a new home.
Right.
Or if it's inappropriate elimination in a cat, it might not be evident until the pets find a new home. Because, for example, the cat lives in a group with other cats, and you don't really know if there is someone that is peeing out of the litter box. So
That's so true. It's hard to tell, especially here when our cats live communally. So we might have 10, 11 cats in a room, and we're not sure exactly who's doing what at all times.
yeah,
Yeah.
the home environment, it's always a place where like a lot of behavior problems that are not seen in a shelter are revealed. But it's also true the opposite. That is, you might have, for example, a dog that in a shelter environment, because perceives the presence of the other animals, it's a little bit grumpy around the food, and it sort of growl, and then he comes back home. He finds a new home,
Hmm.
and it says, well, here I can have all the foods that I want, always when I want. I really don't have to worry about this. And so it's not really showing any signs of resource guarding at that point. So the change itself will cause some adjustment to the pet. Some things might show up, while some other things may improve. One of the problems that is most common is the one that we were mentioning, which is separation anxiety. And I have to say, the pandemic is not the right time to detect separation anxiety, because you bring a pet home, and you basically are always with your pet because you can't go anywhere else.
Hmm.
Uh, However, this has to be kept in mind, because when you will go back to your routine, this is when this might be manifested again. So there might be some sort of latent behavior that you have not been able to see so far because you have been all time with your dog. But then when you go back to work, it will get manifested. So this is definitely the most relevant problem, and there are also studies that shows that actually animals coming from shelters are more at risk. Why? Well, we don't know exactly. One reason might be because they were surrendered because of a problem of separation anxiety, or the other reason might be because they have gone through so many traumatic attachment and detachment that then they really afraid to lose the main figure in their life. So this is the most relevant problem. You might see it or not. You might need to wait to go back to work. The other problem, which also is related to COVID-19, but in the opposite way, are, as we were saying before, pets that probably in the shelter, they were used to uh, a significant amount of time of independence in which they basically get their time, their environment, and then there is a new pet. The kids are not going to school, and everybody is on top of the dog or the cat continuously. And this might be a challenge for animals that are already struggling to adapt to a new environment. So in this case, I would definitely recommend to, as I was saying, to give time and give space to your dog and your cat. They need time to get acclimated to the new environment, and you have to set up a place that is their place where they can go, they can retreat, and they can be undisturbed if they want. In the end, we all want this. So the people that live in a larger house and can separate, right, in one
Mhm.
floor and the other, they had a much easier time during this COVID-19 pandemic because you still have your space. But people, for example, that live in a small apartment and suddenly you find yourself 24 hours every day in contact with a person, it might just be a little bit more difficult. So the same is true for our pets. We need to give them a space that is their space, and they can decide when they want to interact with us and when they need to rest or sleep. And when they want to interact with us, it doesn't necessarily correspond to our desire. So maybe now we are busy with Zoom calls all day, then we have a 10 minutes break, and we decide that those 10 minutes are good for us to go and disturb our dog that's resting. But that the dog might strongly disagree and say, you know what, I came before, you didn't pay me any attention, now I'm sleeping, so I'm not going to start this with you. So yeah, that's the acclimation time is definitely the most difficult, probably.
Well, I think you make such an interesting point by saying that, people have brought an animal home, and this animal may not exhibit any symptoms or behavioral issues until actually they go back to work. So the second transition is where something may happen, and a behavioral problem could arise. So I guess the honeymoon would be over at that point, and people will have two sides of a dog or two sides of a cat that comes out. So what can people do to make their animals most comfortable? So you don't talk about the space. So just letting them have their own crate or their own little beds or whatever, and give them the space that they need.
Yes, this is one. Uh, I would say probably um, from a distribution of space standpoint is the most important rule. They should have their own safe area, but also the other thing that we have to keep in mind is the distribution of time, which is what is going to change when we go back to our duties. So this can be a very important change for the pet, and some individuals may struggle a lot, especially individuals that are actually enjoying the company of the owner. So my suggestion would be to make the transition the same way in which I was suggesting to make the transition gradual at the beginning, to give time and space to the dog. It should be as gradual in the second transition. So what does it mean? It means that when you anticipate that you might go back to your office, uh, I hopefully everybody will have the possibility to know it in advance, right? I
Hmm.
doubt that it would be abrupt. Like
Right.
companies would start to make plans and they would tell, starting from these days, this is what happened with us, for example. At some point, they told us you can come one day, then 2 days. So uh, at that point, you have to start to change your daily routine and make it as similar as you can to what will be when you are away. And this doesn't necessarily have to be that you have to leave the house for 6 or 8 hours if you are not going to work, but it might mean that if you have to walk your dog, then it should be at the times that usually then you anticipate you will need to walk him when you are back to work.
Mhm.
Same thing, meals, right? So the meals have to be adjusted to the schedule that you think you will have. And uh, Very gradually. It doesn't have to be an abrupt change. So, for example, if you know 1 month in advance, you can move the hour of the walks progressively, like half an hour or 1 hour every day, and also it's good that in this time also the light time will change, so you can also adjust it to the light time and and move it towards the hour that you anticipate it will be when you go back to work. This is, I think, is more difficult for households that have kids
Mhm.
because it's just more difficult to have rules with kids which are already having such a hard time, right? They cannot see their
Right.
friends, they cannot play. So it's very difficult to tell kids, you know, uh, from this hour to this hour, you should try to leave Fluffy in peace. So I anticipate that this might be a little bit more difficult for a household with kids, and hopefully the start of the school will not coincide with the moving back to the office for work. So at least you can have a gradual change. Now, one thing to keep in mind when we're talking before about separation anxiety, that is,
Mhm.
if there are dogs that, or cats for that matter, because cats can suffer the same problem too. If there are dogs or cats that will have difficulties adjusting to the new routine and environment, some of them, I would say the great majority of them, they will probably have what we consider an expected normal reaction. That is, they will struggle a little bit, but then they will get used to. But if you see that your pet is struggling, really struggling, which means, for example, if it's barking all the time, or causing distraction, or peeing and pooping around the house, if you see these signs at the beginning, don't ignore them. Talk to your vet. That is, do something at the beginning, because if the reaction is very intense, and especially if there are these very intense signs, then your pet might not be able to go through this alone. It might need some help. And
Mhm.
then at that point, you might need to talk to a behavior specialist for um, uh, coming out with a plan to adjust the environment. Or in some cases, it's really uh, uh, the animal is having a hard time, medication might be necessary. But if the reaction is really intense, do not ignore it. Do not wait that it will fix by itself, because
Mhm.
it can actually get worse. The more negative experiences your pet has in a specific environment, the worse it will get. So uh, yeah, giving some help, it's important. Um, Also, because what we want to avoid definitely is that part of this pet will go back to a shelter, right? If they
Mhm.
don't have,
Right.
if they struggle. So we definitely want to avoid this. So when you see problems, reach out to your veterinarian if you think it's not like just a little bit of struggle. If a dog would whine for 10 minutes after you have left, then this might be all right if then it just goes asleep. And by the way, get a camera, because the way in which you will know all this is by observing your dog. So get a camera connected to a streaming app. So for the first time, you just go around the block and watch what your dog is doing on the phone, so you can have a good feeling of what is going to happen. But you are right around the corner, and you can come back if it's really bad.
Great
Um,
idea. Yeah. So now we can tell pretty easily, or more easily, I would suspect, from a dog and how they manifest their separation anxiety, and with barking and house they're not housebroken, things like that. But with a cat, it seems like it's more difficult to assess. So how would a cat manifest separation anxiety?
So cats, one of the most frequent things that they do, uh, they vomit. They become very upset. They vomit, and I can see from my own cat, like if I'm gone for the regular routine, she's usually fine. But if I leave for 3 or 4 days and just leave an automatic feeder,
Hmm.
I'm quite confident that she will have vomited a couple of times because she gets really upset. In some cases, we have also seen cats that do uh, um, urinate outside of the litter box or defecate outside of the litter box, and they become very stressed, and they will start to have problems. In many cases, inappropriate elimination in cats is a sign of stress. So
Okay.
this is another possibility. But I do anticipate that the great majority of cats will do much better than dogs because they are um, um, programmed to spend more time alone, right?
Mhm.
They don't come from a social ancestor like the dog. They come from a solitary ancestor, the wild cat, which was used actually to spend a lot of time alone. Um, Another change that I anticipate it can happen. This might or might not. It depends where you live, I think. But one thing that has been probably better with the pandemic is that there have been less people around. So if you have a dog that lunges and barks at people,
Mm.
so you had a lot of quieter time to walk your dog. Uh, but when people, especially going back to our regular life, will also coincide with the spring, probably. So there would be people would be really tired to stay home for both the pandemic and the winter. So everybody will be out. And if your dog struggles with meeting people, just passing by like really close, then that's another thing that you might need to adjust and start now working on some training to get your dog attention. So even if really now you don't need it because it's very quiet, but bring some cookies, some dog treats out with you, and ask your dog to focus on you. You can use watch me or just call his name or name, and when you should turn around, you just give a treat. But get your dog used to stay focused on you during walks. Now it's okay, but you might need it later when everybody suddenly will be outside.
That's a really good point, because your dog, you may not know how dog aggressive your dog would be until you finally are out there and there's 50 other people walking their dogs, or you decide to take your dog to a dog park. So that could really be an issue to deal with.
Yeah, people that live in the city would see a big change.
Mhm.
So from a very busy environment, Philadelphia itself is second only to Manhattan in terms of density of people around downtown. So um, when it will be back to our usual, and I hope it will, uh, for dogs might not just be easier. They might say, "What happened to this quiet town?" Now it's kind of everybody went crazy and is around. So
So, what as human beings, what do we do to annoy our animals the most? Are there things that we do that really we shouldn't be doing to our animals, even though we think we're doing them out of the name of love or affection? What are some of the things that might really be bad for us to do?
you mean in general or in this period?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general,
Yeah.
and also I guess, well, see, we're talking in different times here, so it could be relevant to what we're doing now, or just having an animal in your house.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I think I am a little bit cynical about this, and I always tell to my students that in the animal welfare and veterinary medicine business, love is overrated. That is not about love, right? It's about empathy. It's about understanding um, how pets see the reality, and dogs and cats see the reality in a different way, as you were saying before. So dogs, most of the time, they are uh, actually um, they do enjoy a quiet, consistent interaction, sometimes even prolonged. Cats rarely do. They have these few seconds in which they want to rub, and then they're like, "Okay, we're done. I told you we are we are best buddies, but that's all." So I think one of the things that we do that is most upsetting to our pet is not giving them space and pretending from them things that they really struggle to give to us. The idea that animals would do anything to please us or please, as sometimes people say, their master, it's wrong. So pets are domesticated animals that sorry, uh, pets are domesticated animals that they are really dependent from our uh, uh, will and to eat, to drink the most basic things, or to pee or poop. They have to ask sort of permission to us, right? They have to go outside. So they really struggle. They do their best to understand uh, what we want from them. But I don't think we do the same. That is, we don't really make an effort to understand how are they seeing things right now. So why you are behaving in this way? There is always a reason. When we say sometimes, "Oh, and out of the blue we did this," or it's never out of the blue. There is a reason. We just didn't focus on trying to understand what the pet wanted to say. So if I could give a recommendation to people is to become familiar, to not assume that, oh, I'm a dog person, I'm a cat person. I know I've lived all my life with dogs and cats. We all live our life with humans around, but it doesn't mean that we are good at understanding people. We have to we are not all psychologists or psychiatrists, so we need to study. Same thing for dogs. So choose reputable sources of information and try to understand your pet's point of view. Why, for example, does things like, I don't know, from basic stuff like pulling around and sniffing all around during walks. That's a normal dog behavior, right? Depriving it of this, it might just be a violence, a little violence to the dog. So
So your
choose
suggestion
reputable
would
source
be
of
that,
information and educate yourself.
right, education's key. Once again, we are almost out of time, and it just went too fast because there's so much to talk about. And if you are one of those people who are having some issues with your cat or dog, please contact Dr. Siracusta and his behavioral service at Penn Vet, and I'm sure that they will be able to help you. Um, I'm hoping that it. I'm hoping that we won't have a big influx of surrendered pets in the new year. So do yourself a favor and get some help. Dr. Siracusta, thank you so much for joining us today and helping us understand our furry friends a little bit more, and for all the wonderful work you do at Penn Vet. And if you're looking for a new best friend, check out our website, francisvillehome.org, and you'll be able to see all our adoptable pets there. And also, please join us on Facebook at Francisville Home. Until next time, this is Dorothy Claeys for Francisville Home for Smaller Animals, the shelter where every pet matters.